Welcome back to my Final Fantasy XIV love series. Today's love story is about my best friend's brother. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It all started back in 2013. Final Fantasy XIV had relaunched. I didn't get to play it back from 1.0 only because I'm a PlayStation player, and at the time OG Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 was only available on PC. Plus I didn't have a PC to play with. At that time I was with my ex-boyfriend for 5 years, and sadly our relationship was kinda one-sided. Even though I would put 100% into the relationship, half the time he was always thinking about other girls, and I was like his trophy prize only because I was 2 years older. And boy was I blind. His manipulative, possessive behavior would always latch me tight, and it was always hard to leave the relationship because he would always accuse me of giving up and not fighting for us. I was near my thread and just wanted to end it, but he would always find a way to guilt trip me back into the relationship. He introduced me to Final Fantasy XIV for us to play together, to spend time together playing on our PlayStation 3s, just as we used to back then. I told him to be careful because once I start playing this game, there will be no going back for me. After all, I am a big Final Fantasy fan. Plus I used to play Ragnarok online, and playing a new type of MMO would be a fun experience. He agreed, and we got the game for PlayStation 3. Me being extra, I got the collector's edition. And back then, when we got the game, the first month was free. I think it's still free actually if you buy the game. His character was a regular, plain healer. Starting in Ul'dah as a gladiator, he chose that class to protect me. On the other hand, I started in Gridania as a conjurer Mikote. Back in Ragnarok Online, I used to be the main healer. I was a high priestess and I loved the class, so becoming a white mage was gonna be obvious. Starting off the game was interesting because we picked our classes and we didn't know we were gonna be thrown in different cities. Either way, I still had fun leveling up and going through the story. Eventually, as I continued to explore around and play with my ex, I figured out we could somehow meet up since Thanalan and Gridania connect. Getting around was surely an adventure because we were still pretty low on level and we had to avoid any high-level monsters in between. Eventually, we met up at the end of South Shrouds and we managed to friend our characters and party up. We proceeded through MSQ and managed to unlock the airship traveling and even tried our first dungeon together. Being noobs at the time, we were all over the place and my ex was still trying to get used to the controls. He didn't like it much because he still had to wait for the attacks to rotate to use the next one. He's used to more action-based skills like Kingdom Hearts. However, that didn't bother me as much because I was used to the turn-based of how FF was. And it felt very nostalgic because FF12 had a similar battle combat due to trying to be like FF11. A month barely passed and he barely logged on, and it was due to his parents not letting him play much. What did I see in this guy? I truly wonder when I look back on it. Once the free month ended, he didn't want to pay for the sub because he was only gonna play the game during the weekends mostly, and if his parents weren't complaining about him playing for too long. I warned him that this was a paid sub game and not free. I was considering paying for his sub, but knowing how strict his parents were, I decided not to. After trying to convince him to come back, I ended up playing alone, and I wanted to play with close friends because I still didn't have a player to hang out with. That's when Kenshin comes in. Kenshin, me, and my ex used to go to the same college, and we even attended the same college club. Kenshin's birthday was coming up, and because my ex was not playing as much, my ex suggested getting him the game as a present, since Kenshin was another big FF fan. Now, why would my ex suggest that? Well, my ex was kind of a fan of Kenshin. He would idolize him because he knew how to play Tekken and other games. Aside from that, I decided to get Kenshin Final Fantasy XIV for the PlayStation 3. for his birthday. Then, not long after, he started to play. Kenshin's friends followed. With more people joining in the game, it was more fun to play. Me, Kenshin, and one of his friends, who was also playing Final Fantasy XIV way before us, decided to make an FC for all of us to join and play together. Almost every night, I was online and I would party up together with my friends and FC members to level up together by running fates, dungeon roulettes, and even guild hests. I know, back in ARR, that was one of the ways to level up faster. The more we played together, the closer we grew as friends. When housing was introduced, we saved up enough guild to get a small house in Limsa, the Mist, right by the beach too. What? Oh, it's so good that we're right here in Limsa and the beach. It's awesome. It's perfect for the story. Eventually, we would even hang out IRL at the cafeteria during college, and we would talk about Final Fantasy XIV, other games, and anime. One time, while I was waiting for my ex to get out of class, I was hanging out with Kenshin in the cafeteria and talking about Final Fantasy XIV's new cross event from Dragon Quest, Breaking Brick Mountains. I had asked Kenshin if he did the new event, and he said, yeah, it was funny. It was a funny event. I said, same, especially the puff puff scene with the girls. That was hilarious. By that time, my ex arrived, and we were gonna head out for the day. But not before I said to Kenshin, some puff puff time tonight? As a form to say, see ya online. Kenshin said the same thing, puff puff tonight, and we left to go home. My ex didn't like the way I was talking to Kenshin with that puff puff stuff. He quickly jumped the gun and thought I was already cheating on him with Kenshin, but I quickly corrected him and told him that he was wrong. I wouldn't waste my time with cheating when I'm already with him. Plus, the puff puff was related to the cross Final Fantasy XIV event with Dragon Quest, and I told him that if he had logged in and played, he would understand as well. Oh, he was feeling left out. Eventually, my ex started to get super jealous of me for playing more with Kenshin than with him. I still played other games with my ex though. Plus, I spent some IRL time with him too. I would always be at his house. Either way, my ex continued to get more jealous that he started to manipulate me by guilt tripping, and I ended up playing less and not logging in as much. Kenshin noticed I wasn't logging in as frequently, and during school, I wasn't my cheerful self. He reached out to ask if I was doing alright, but I kept to myself because I didn't like bothering others. Things weren't going all that great with my ex. His demands to keep my attention on him and not on my friends kept me from playing with them. But my only way to escape from his toxic behavior was by playing Final Fantasy XIV. At this point, I didn't care anymore, so I came back to play with my friends, and they were all happy I had come back. During this time, Kenshin had already reached max level 50, so he started to play on endgame content, like the first binding coils of Bahamut. I had only a few levels to reach the max, so he would still accompany me on roulettes to level his other classes as well. There were some nights we would stay talking together after he finished raiding after 3 a.m. In some conversations, I would even ask for his advice on how I can fix a relationship that overall wasn't working out. Kenshin brought up a very important question. Was I really happy being with my ex? Because overall, he did notice that my ex was flirting with a lot of other girls while I was in class during college, and yet was very possessive over me. Kenshin had a girlfriend named Felicia, who also attended the same college. What better way to ask a guy's perspective when he is also in a relationship, I thought. Overall, I was just not happy, and the moment my ex introduced me to Final Fantasy XIV, it was like over for our relationship. Eventually, I managed to build up enough courage and I was able to break it off with my ex. Mind you, my ex was still trying hard to pretend that he owned me by still telling his friends that we were on a break. Plus, his friends were all jerks, ignoring me and referring to me still as my ex's girlfriend and not by name. I was fed up and left the group and decided to hang out with my new friend, Iza, which is Kenshin's sister, and Star, who is also Iza's friend. So we eventually became besties. During an IRL Halloween party, everyone in the club was invited. That meant that my ex was also attending. but also Kenshin, Felicia, and Kenshin's friend as well. I wanted to hang out with Kenshin and his friends because we were already such good friends in Final Fantasy XIV and we would all play together. So it felt like the FC get-together. Oh my god, that's so cute. Your IRL friends all play Final Fantasy XIV with you. So jealous. At the party, I sat down at the same table as Kenshin and his friends. Plus, Isa, Kenshin's sister, was also there. However, while I was having fun, my ex showed up and sat next to me. For the majority of the night, he would not leave me alone. After Kenshin's girlfriend Felicia left for the night, Kenshin noticed how uncomfortable I was feeling next to my ex. When my ex stepped out for a moment, Kenshin took this opportunity to pick me up and raise me high in the air to cheer me up. Eek! He picked me up! Blushing face emoji. Not gonna lie, it felt nice and a bit embarrassing at the same time, but it sure made me happy. Just when we were about to leave for the night, my ex followed me to my car and had the audacity to try to convince me to get back together. But I was not having it. I was done with him. We argued for a bit till I told him off to leave me alone. Once I got home and logged in, Kenshin quickly sent me an invite and started to ask me if I was alright, because he noticed my ex was still bothering me at the parking lot back at the party. I told him I took care of the situation and nothing to worry about, but I did thank him for his concern. After all that, I decided to cut ties with my ex and his group of judgmental friends. That's when I started to hang out more with Isa and Star. We are best friends now and we all play Final Fantasy XIV together and hang out at Isa's place more often watching anime. Oh my god, she's hanging out at Isa's house, which is Kenshin's sister. Gonna see Kenshin a lot too. However, during my Final Fantasy XIV adventures with Kenshin, I started to slowly develop some feelings towards him because we continued to grow closer as we played more and more. Now that I finally got away from my ex and his possessive behavior, I was able to spend time with my friend Isa, Kenshin's sister, and Star, and continue to play Final Fantasy XIV to my heart's desires. At times, I would come over to Isa and Kenshin's place, and we would play Final Fantasy XIV together with different TVs on our PlayStation 3. During our times together, Kenshin would help me understand the extreme fights and what would be the best way to clear them. Kenshin saw how much I was improving, and he was encouraging me to try out binding coils. Once he showed me the fights, my interest peaked and I wanted to try them out. At this time, Kenshin was in a static group and in the process of clearing T5, Twintania. So I decided to put myself through the party finder and start shouting in Mordona if there was any room for a white mage to join a prog group in hopes of getting into a static for binding coils. Yup, shouting in Mordona to get people to notice the PF was a thing. Took me a few days since PF wasn't that versatile and it was even server locked. Considering Final Fantasy XIV was still new, improvements have yet to be implemented. So whatever population Goblin had at the time, that's how much of a chance you had to find a group that was willing to learn. Because there was no world server traveling or even a remote connection to play between servers. It was tough, and Goblin was a really small server back then. But that didn't stop me, and I was able to get in a prog static and eventually managed to reach T5. The fight took me a good 2 to 3 months to clear, and during this time, the second coils of Bahamut had already been released. Oh man, those days where you couldn't even server travel. Like, you're just stuck on that one server and all the people that's there. It felt really small back then. Kenshin and his static team managed to clear T5, and now they were in the second coils of Bahamut. The location for it was in the North Shrouds at Full Gourd Float. Back then, to enter the coil, the entire party needed to be present on the map. Therefore, the Full Guard float was always booming with a lot of raiders, and it was such an amazing time to meet other raiders and a way to connect with others. Aside from that, because I wasn't technically in an official static group, my raiding was mostly on and off, so I would always visit Kenshin and his raid group at the designated area, and after raiding, we would do roulettes together and work on our relic. One day, I was gonna hang out with Isa and I arrived early, but Isa was picking up Star. She told me to reach out to Kenshin to let me in. Once I was let in, I noticed he was progging T6 with his static. That's when I met his team over TeamSpeak. And funny enough, one of his close friends who I knew IRL was part of that group as well. I thought it was cool having an official static to prog these fights. On Kenshin's static break, I announced to him that I was able to beat T5. In his excitement, he hugged me and kissed me on the cheek for congratulations. Like, just like on the cheek? At that moment, my heart skipped a beat and I knew my face was flaring up intensely red, so I quickly looked away and thanked him. Grant you, I tried to brush it off because he has a girlfriend, and the last thing I want to do is break them apart. A week passed and Kenshin personally texted me asking where his white mage was. I was confused about what he meant by that. Turns out one of his healers from his static group had to drop out due to an IRL scheduling conflict and other personal stuff. So he quickly recommended me and I ended up joining his static group. Not as a white mage, but as a scholar. Either way, I still mainly healed, so it was no problem for me. Healer adjust, lol. Now I was part of Kenshin's static group and we managed to clear the entire coils together. Oh, more time with Kenshin. As time passed, we continued to play together almost every day and night. There were times when I was doing my own thing, like doing the Sylph Beast Tribe quest. I would bump into him unexpectedly, so I would ask for his help to protect me as I carried certain items across the mob of enemies I had to avoid, or otherwise I would have to start all over. He then proceeded to answer with, "Of course, my young master." Wait, did he just call me young master? Why would he call me that? My heart skipped a beat and my face started to blush. So glad he could not see me through my screen, lol. Then I remembered that we were watching Black Butler together at his house with him and Iza. So I guess he was just playing around with me. I would continue to bump into him every time I would be doing the Beast Tribe quest. And he would proceed to call me his eye candy, his white mage, and his young master. I let it be and tried not to put much meaning behind all that. Later, when I was working on my ARR relic and reached the book phase, one of the requirements was to eliminate certain enemies that needed to be cleared for the book. And that's when I realized why I would keep bumping into him during that Sylph area, because he was also working on his job relics, so he would have been around regardless. As time went on, I was slowly growing more and more attached to him, but I couldn't let myself be too attached to him because I didn't want to interfere with his relationship. Mind you, Felicia didn't even play Final Fantasy XIV, so you're wondering, when did he spend time with her? Well, due to her busy schedule to become an RN. What does RN stand for? It's something nurse. Kenshin barely had time to spend with her, and their work schedule would also conflict. Registered nurse. Thank you, chat. Sure, they would talk on the phone every night and see each other maybe 3 to 5 times a month. At this point, it felt like a long-distance relationship between them. When the holidays arrived, Iza and Kenshin's mother left to spend time with family members in another country. Therefore, Kenshin and his father stayed at the house due to work. I decided to plan a New Year's party at Kenshin's place with all our friends to join. They all agreed and we had a blast as the new year arrived. Slowly, our friends started to leave for the night. I stayed behind to help clean around. One of his friends mistook me for Kenshin's girlfriend, mainly because he never really met Kenshin's girlfriend, and I guess the obvious thought was that I was his girlfriend. As my heart skipped a beat and started to flutter, I tried to calm down and not let my emotions show too much, so I laughed it out and said that I was just a friend. Felicia couldn't make it because she was also with her family overseas. Oh, the friend of Kenshin thought she was the girlfriend. After 3 a.m., I had finished helping him clean his place, and before heading out, I asked him if we could talk for a moment. During this time, Final Fantasy XIV's latest patch released the marriage system, the ceremony of eternal bonding. I wanted to get that 2-seater chocobo mount, so I decided to ask Kenshin if he wanted to do the eternal bonding quest with me. I let him know I wanted to get the 2-seater mount and that he was one of my choices of players to ask. But at the same time, I let him know that I didn't want to do the quest with any random person or someone I didn't play as much with. Plus, knowing a wide range of players due to the hard content, I was one of the few players who they knew was a girl. And boy, all the guys would not stop sending me tells to basically marry them. What was it like when marrying first came out into Final Fantasy XIV? Everyone must have been so excited and just asked all their friends, hey, let's get married. Come on, let's go see this new feature and try it out. Everyone in Limsa just asking each other, hey, let's get married. Considering the number of guy players who were after me, and he knows how they are, he decided to agree not only because I asked, but because he didn't want any random dude to do the quest with me when they barely even played with me. Since Kenshin and I would always play together, it made much more sense. Not gonna lie, I was ecstatic, but I kept the excitement to myself. LOL. Brace yourself. Some shit is about to go down. LOL. After the holidays, my IRL besties Star and Iza wanted to hang out together at Star's place and play video games together. While we were hanging out together at Star's place, an uninvited guest decided to show up. It was Felicia. She showed up to hang out with us. As per Star's confirmation, Felicia had texted her asking what she was up to. Not moments after the reply from Star mentioning that she was hanging out with Iza and me, Felicia showed up at the door and decided to invite herself. This didn't sit well with Star's older sister. The fact that Felicia invited herself like she owns the place was weird. I'll admit, it was rather odd because we were all confused why Felicia was here. Either way, I was like, cool, more people to hang out with and play. Well, boy, was I wrong about that. After a few rounds of Mario Party, Felicia was sitting close to me, and all of a sudden she started to talk about Kenshin, how amazing a boyfriend he is, and all the stuff he gives her. Then she started to state how well she knows her man, like the things he likes, how they are the best couple together, etc. The list went on, and as I was listening to her, it felt like she was verbally claiming her man in a way as if she owned him, and that was irritating me because it felt like she was attacking me indirectly. But in all honesty, throughout the year I was hanging out with Kenshin, they barely spent time together anymore due to their weird scheduling conflict and school. And out of respect, Kenshin wouldn't bother her as much because he knows how important her registered nurse studies are. Either way, the way she was talking about him made me feel ill and at the same time somewhat jealous. Wait, did I say jealous? Oh dear, I have fallen for him so deeply to the point that this type of conversation was making me feel this way. After she stopped rambling about him, I stood up and told Star that I was not feeling well and I needed to head out. I was supposed to take Iza back to her place, and I had promised Kenshin that I would since he was currently at work. But because of the way I was feeling, I couldn't hold it anymore. I asked Felicia if it was alright for her to take Iza back home to her place. Plus, it would be a great opportunity to see her boyfriend that she kept boasting about all night. I asked her if it was alright since Felicia herself had a curfew to be back home at a certain time. Felicia quickly agreed to take Iza back home. Once I got home, I logged in, and minutes later Kenshin logged in and started to send me a party invitation, and I continued to decline them. I rarely or at all refuse his party invites, so this was definitely out of character for me, to the point that Kenshin called me to see if I was alright. I told him I was not feeling all that well, but I quickly brushed it off and told him to go spend time with his girlfriend since she was there. And I could hear Felicia in the background. Plus, I let him know that I didn't want to interrupt their time together, but he said that didn't matter because she was about to head back home. After hanging up, I accepted his party invite, and he then quickly started to ask if I was truly alright because it sounded like I was hiding something from him. And since I was supposed to take Iza back home, he was expecting me to also show up and not Felicia. He continued to voice his concern and let me know that if I ever needed someone to talk to, he would be there for me because I've become such a very special person to him. He cared deeply and he wanted to make sure I was doing all right, considering how awful my ex treated me and all. I replied to him, thanking him for his concern and for being there for me. But deep down, after all that had happened at Star's place, the way Felicia was claiming him made me feel like shit. I was so upset that I would not stop crying. Have I truly fallen for Kenshin? My chest and heart were aching. I didn't want to fall for him because he was with Felicia and it didn't feel right at all. But sadly, one cannot control one's heart's feelings. Oh my god, I feel like this is like a Netflix series, right? It's like your friend, your best friend is the sister of the guy you like. It's so cute. A month passed and it was the date of our eternal bond. I invited all our FC friends, our raid friends, and anybody who we partied with. It was a very fun experience because no one knew who I was getting married to. Once the ceremony started, then it was obvious who was going to be my partner. Funny enough, because Kenshin let me set up the arrangements, my stupid ass gave him the bouquet instead of me. I'm sorry, I was confused about the selection of who holds the bouquet. When it said partner, I thought it was talking about me, lol. So upon our arrival, Kenshin was the one holding the bouquet and I was the groom in this role. That's so funny. Heck, even in the middle of the vows, my internet decided to crap out and I had to DC. All my friends on the chat in TeamSpeak thought I had abandoned the groom, but luckily it was a quick DC and I was able to come back to the ceremony. The night ended well with all of us having fun together. You see, not even a few weeks after our eternal bonding, Kenshin had called me over because he wanted to talk to me, but he didn't sound all that well. So I was concerned and headed over to his place. In the conversation, Kenshin stated that he fucked up in the relationship with Felicia. I asked him what happened. Turns out Felicia's feelings towards Kenshin were fading and she was losing interest in him. I wanted to help him out all the way, but I still had a lot to learn more about Kenshin, and I know I wasn't a close friend to give him all the full advice he deserved. I still voiced my concern, but because he was asking me what he should do, I told him to follow his heart and if he was happy. At the same time, I recommended that he reach out to his best friend if he wanted further advice and someone to talk to who truly understands him best. A day later, he talked to me that he broke it off. Felicia had forced him to choose right at that moment to either stay with her or not. But why would she make those demands when she wasn't sure of her own feelings? Kenshin knew the relationship wasn't going to work out. As I was comforting him, he kissed me on the cheek and said, "Wait for me." What the fuck? No way did that. What? Wait for me? This is like an anime. At that moment, my heart skipped a beat and my face turned super red. I tried to hide those emotions and asked him, "What do you mean by that?" Kenshin then proceeded to ask me if I had feelings towards him. At this point, I couldn't hide it anymore. Plus, his close friend also made me aware that I had feelings for him. And confirming to Kenshin that it was true made it clear that I truly liked him more than a friend. I said I was sorry, but yes, my feelings kept growing deeper and deeper the more we continued playing Final Fantasy XIV. And the fact that he didn't stop calling me cute didn't help me reject those feelings. He said that there was no need to apologize, and he apologized to me for not noticing sooner. The night ended shortly, and we headed our separate ways. I let Kenshin have his space, but we continued to play online, do our usual dailies, and raid with our friends. A few weeks later, a little bit after 3 a.m., Kenshin called me over the phone while we were playing and proceeded to say, "I've made a realization, and it's more apparent the more we spend time together. I really like you, Hanami, more than I thought. You have become such a huge part of my life, and you have made me so much happier in the year we've been hanging out together. And I want to make you happy as well, because you deserve better than what you had. Would you like to be my girlfriend?" Psych! LOL. So I wished he would have said that to me, LOL. But what actually happened was that before bed, he called me and asked me to be his girlfriend. I giggled because the way he asked me was half asleep, but he wanted to make sure to ask me before bed. OP's so funny. They wrote up like this whole like paragraph that they actually wanted Kenshin to say, but it was just like half asleep before he went to bed. I obviously said yes, LOL. And thus we became a couple. We still play Final Fantasy XIV together. We even live together now. Oh, shit. Sure, a good portion of our FC friends moved on to other games or got busy with IRL, but we've kept that FC going even if we had in and out members and even if it's just the two of us for some time. Now our FC may be tiny, it has all our close friends or online friends who are casual players, but that doesn't stop us from enjoying the game together and helping others. Heck, last year we celebrated our 7th anniversary of being married in-game. Just need that eternal bonding quest to pop up IRL and we will be all set. The end. Thanks again for reading my stories. Does it not feel like we watched an anime show right there? Oh, look at this! Look at the mounts in the background. That's so cute. The elephants and the white chocobo. There was like a small part of drama. That's why I combined. This is like a drama love story. The X at the beginning and Felicia in that one part. Yay! Thanks for reading my story. It's so cute. Thanks for submitting it, Hanami. You and Kenton are so adorable. Now I wish I could find my soulmate on Final Fantasy XIV. I am inspired. You know, but it's really cute that they were like a group of friends IRL and they all played Final Fantasy XIV together. I envy that. Let me know in the comments below if you like this new Final Fantasy XIV love series. And a big thank you to my kind members who support my YouTube content.